This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Lovejuice.
The other day our producer Louis had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithms really aren't that happy if a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we decided we could text ya whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the Track Extra. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortune Zoology, and this is my cat Lilith. And we both welcome you to another episode of On the Track Extra. For those of you who don't know, twice a week on Wednesday evenings for at least a quarter of an hour, and on Saturday afternoons for twice that, we bring you a mishmash, a miscellany, all sorts of other things beginning with M, of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. I usually ask, what is surreality, for those of you who don't know, but I've run out of people who I can ask at this time. So, oh goodness me, look who's coming along the road. It's Prince Rupert of the Rhine.
Don't ask me what I am doing walking down Back Street in Wolseley, because it is none of your business. And don't ask me what surreality is either, because that is none of your business also. So there.
Well, he wasn't much use, was he, Lilith?
I don't like him. He's part of the patriarchy.
Well, that's as may be. But let's get on with the show. As many of you will probably remember, a few weeks or even a month and a bit ago, V. McCrinnan and I did the first of our shows about collected testudine tales, and one of the things that we spoke about was a series of dead Aldabran giant tortoises which was found in Ashclyst Forest near Exeter in the middle of the winter. So, although the police have not managed to find out any further evidence yet, and we've got no idea who, why or what they were dumped, we sent our very own Richard Freeman, Zoological Director of the CFZ, and Guin Palmer, Assistant Director of the CFZ, up to Ashclyst Forest to see what they could discern from the place.
It's been 7 years since I've came to the forest.
Well, this is Ashclyst Forest, where 9 dead Aldabran giant tortoises have been found recently. How and why they got here is a mystery. But they're very expensive animals, and they're immensely heavy and hard to transport, which makes it all the stranger. And 9 of them. Now, Gwyn has said she thinks it's most likely that these were somehow illegally imported and died and were dumped here, which seems to make sense, but the transportation of them would be incredibly difficult because it takes more people to lift them than you can actually physically get around them. So unless you've got some sort of forklift or lifting apparatus, it would be incredibly difficult.
If you discount the single specimen found in the forest in 2021, the first 2 were found on the 8th of January this year, with a further 5 found on the 12th of January and 2 more found towards the end of the month. But it was right at the beginning of February when our 2 intrepid explorers went to see what they could find. But it didn't take long for Richard and Gwyn to discover that, just as in so many of the things we investigate, there were not going to be any easy answers.
You would have to drive them up to the car park and then transport them into the forest. How?
That gate's padlocked down there, and you'd have to go through that tiny little, where we walked through with a little post sticking up. So how you'd carry them through there, I don't know. You'd have to go over, unless you've got a key to the gate. Other than that, the other side, you'd have to climb over the fence.
Unless there's some other way in we don't know. Then again, you still need a vehicle.
And you couldn't park in the narrow country lane, because there's bound to be another vehicle along at some point. So you'd have to park in a car park at least.
The Aldabran giant tortoise is a distant relative of the far better known Galapagos giant tortoises. It is confined to a few small islands in the Indian Ocean. However, in recent years things became far more complicated when it was discovered that there are actually 2 species, the Aldabran giant tortoise and the Seychelles giant tortoise. Which of the 2 species the 9 dead animals found in the forest in Exeter are, it's not been divulged. Not yet, anyway. About 20 years ago, I was involved with a small zoo in the West Country, an experience which wasn't a very happy one for me. And one of the jobs that I had been tasked with was to find new and exciting exhibits for them. I located some baby Aldabran giant tortoises for sale in Germany, but the smallest price I could get for them was £3,000 each. So, even if they haven't gone up in price in the last 20 years, that was for babies and these were sub-adults. And if we stay in a time warp, assuming that the animals are going to have stayed at 2006 prices, that is still going to be something in the region of £45,000 worth of dead livestock. The amount of people around who can afford £45,000 on exotic pets, and furthermore have the space, the time, and the knowledge to be able to keep them successfully, are very limited. However, the fact that they were found dead in a forest would make one presume that they didn't know how to keep them successfully. Okay, this particular case has nothing to do with cryptozoology, but it is a mystery.
Found over here as well, the forest is quite open. It's not like there's lots of foliage. So anything you were doing, if somebody else was walking around, they'd see you.
Unless you did it in the dead of night, which would make it difficult.
But then that would make it even harder to get into it. You can see quite far.
And there's something quite Fortean, at least on the face of it, in a sort of Sherlock Holmes sort of way, of 9 critically endangered giant tortoises being found in the middle of a forest in Devon for no apparent reason. In fact, it's more than 9, because another one was found in the same forest 2 years ago. The plot thickens. The first thing that Richard and Guin did was to explore the forest, trying to ascertain which of the various access routes to the forest could have been used realistically in order to transport these unfortunate giant reptiles. One can see from the side of the road and from the paths through the forest that vehicles can and do come down here, but one would imagine that they are all authorised Forestry Reserve or National Trust vehicles, and that the advent of a strange vehicle, especially if it came out of hours, would be immediately noticed.
Here we are back at the road again.
So this gate is unlocked. Can you see on the map where it is?
This is the secondary car park. There's a gate over there that you could walk through quite easily, but you couldn't drive through.
There are more highways and byways through the wood than I would at first have expected, and so it was quite a task for Richard and Guin to explore them all.
Want to go along that path?
That one, yeah.
V. McCrinnan and I had originally wondered whether the animals could have been dumped alive in the forest in an earlier part of the year when the weather was warmer enough for them to be able to survive there, and that Richard and Guin would be on a mission of mercy to see if they could find somewhere where the tortoises and hopefully any surviving ones might have hidden and gone into a state of torpor. But the more that one thinks about the circumstances under which they were discovered, the more unlikely that actually seems.
It's a bit precarious to be carrying this huge frisbee.
Yes. I mean, these are considerably heavier than an adult man.
There's no way they're moving.
Considerably heavier.
This would be more the kind of location that I'd leave something I didn't want to be found, but I couldn't carry that down here.
No. I mean, an adult, we're talking, you know, £500 or something like that.
Yeah.
This gate's locked, but it's wide enough here to admit a vehicle. And if you could get in, you could drive along a certain way here and dump your tortoises.
You've got some kind of buggy thing you could pull along.
These days, in our post-QAnon world, it seems that people believe any old conspiracy theorising nonsense. But I truly can't believe that there is a conspiracy amongst people working for the National Trust or the Killerton Park Estate to seed the woods with dead giant tortoises in the middle of night. Why would they do it, and what would possibly be the point? Not to mention, how would they do it?
There would be a great place to leave something. It's quite low down there. Just cover it back up again with the foliage.
That's where we are now.
Yeah, so we're facing that way towards the car park. Over there.
Right behind us, it's fairly extensive. Now this area of the wood is totally open. You can drive all the way down here, so if you were going to bring your tortoises in a van, this is the way in you would have taken. There's still the whole loading them onto the van and loading them off the van as well, so they'd have had to have had some sort of lifting equipment. So this wasn't a sort of quick job, let's get rid of these. You have to get hold of a van, you have to get hold of lifting equipment, so they must have planned it. So whoever did this, I hope they get a sizable amount of time in jail, because that's 9 giant tortoises dead. We've come to another padlocked gate here, so you wouldn't be able to drive down here without the key. So we're thinking that these tortoises must have been dumped between here and the road where we've just showed you, where it's open and you can drive down. This side road here just leads to a pile of aggregate. Back here's a nice little cottage, so it's probably further back that way. If they were doing it at night, else would have been noticed.
And that's about it. Richard and Gwyn found the only logical way that the tortoises could have been brought into the forest, and they totally eliminated most of the other entrances. So what does this tell us? Well, frustratingly little at the moment. I'm beginning to understand how the police are feeling. The police did arrest and question somebody about a month and a half ago, but they released them without charge, and as far as I know they have been eliminated from their inquiries. So what happens next? I'm going to see if I can get Guinevere, dear sweet girl, to get me an interview with the police officer in charge of the case, and anybody else, for example, a spokesperson from the RSPCA who may be dealing with it. I think I'll also have a word with somebody at Killerton Estate to see if they can shed any light on the matter. However, as you all know, the CFZ is a working organisation, and I like it when we can bring you a sort of fly on the wall reality, if you like, reality TV. except what is sold as reality TV is actually very little of the sort. This is the truth about our investigation as it's happening, and I'm very glad that we're able to share it with you. That's it for this episode. I'm going to be back on Saturday. What's going to be in the show on Saturday? Well, to be quite honest, I can't remember. I videoed various bits. So it's either going to be Ian Scribbs talking about the latest Loch Ness Monster documentary, or it's going to be Jackie Tonks talking about her Bigfoot experiences. Both of these are fascinating interviews, and I'm sure you'll enjoy them. So, assuming that you're there, Mr. McCrinnan, I hope that you'll be watching, because I'm going to be there doing the live chat and all the other stuff. And if you're there, Mr. McCrinnan, I'll be seeing you.